Songbird, the canary of the Internet of Value. In the evolution of blockchain, not every network is built to last. Some are built to test, to push boundaries, to break things so that others don't have to. In the Flare ecosystem, that role belongs to Songbird SGB. Launched in 2021, Songbird is more than just another altcoin. It is the Canary network for Flare, a live, fully functional blockchain designed to test features, governance models, and upgrades before they're deployed on Flare itself. In other words, Songbird is where the future of Flare is rehearsed in real time. The metaphor of a canary comes from mining. In coal mines, canaries were once used to detect toxic gases before they harmed miners. Songbird serves the same purpose for Flare. It warns, it experiments, and it ensures resilience. Every innovation, from F-assets to the state connector to decentralized governance, passes through Songbird first. But Songbird is not a throwaway chain. It has its own native token, SGB, its own community, and its own role in the broader Internet of Value. Developers deploy real applications on Songbird. Token holders vote on governance. And ecosystems from DeFi to gaming use it as a proving ground. For many, Songbird is the wild frontier of the Flare vision, alive with experimentation. Its story is tightly woven with XRP and the dream of connecting blockchains and real-world data. Flare itself was designed to unlock smart contracts for XRP, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and other non-programmable chains. Songbird is the testing ground that makes that mission possible. Without it, Flare's vision of bridging assets and data across networks would be far riskier. Songbird also carries its own speculative weight. Traders see it as more than just a testnet. It's a live economy with real value. Its limited supply, role in governance, and position as the first place where Flare's future is tested make it a unique asset. Supporters argue that SGB is undervalued, a hidden gem that will grow alongside Flare's adoption. But the Canary's future is not guaranteed. If Flare soars, Songbird will rise as its indispensable twin. If Flare falters, Songbird risks being dismissed as just another experimental chain. Its destiny is tied to the success of its sibling. This is the untold story of Songbird, the canary of the Internet of Value. Part 1. The birth of Songbird. The launch of Songbird SGB in 2021 marked a new approach to blockchain development. Instead of relying on a traditional testnet, where tokens are free and experiments carry no real stakes, Flare created Songbird as a canary network. Like Polkadot's Kusama, Songbird was designed to test upgrades and innovations in a live environment with real economic value at risk. The idea was simple but powerful. If Flare's mission was to bring smart contracts to non-programmable chains like XRP, Litecoin, and Dogecoin, it couldn't afford mistakes. Critical features like the F-asset system and the state connector had to be stress-tested under real conditions before reaching the main network. A sandbox wasn't enough. A real economy was required. So Flare launched Songbird as its permanent canary. It wasn't a disposable testnet destined to be reset or abandoned. It was a full blockchain in its own right, with its own consensus, validators, community, and governance. Holders of Flare's FLR tokens received an airdrop of SGB, instantly seeding the network with stakeholders who had skin in the game. From the start, Songbird carried two purposes. 1. Experimentation. New features, governance models, and upgrades would debut on Songbird before being deployed to Flare. 2. Independence. Developers could launch apps and tokens on Songbird, building real ecosystems even if their projects never migrated to Flare. This dual role made Songbird unique. It wasn't just practice. It was a living, breathing blockchain that mattered. The name Canary Network comes from mining history, when canaries were carried underground to detect toxic gases before miners were harmed. In the same way, Songbird was designed to take risks so Flare wouldn't have to. If a feature broke, it would break on Songbird first, sparing Flare and protecting the Internet of Value mission. Songbird's launch also gave early adopters a sense of ownership. SGB wasn't play money. It had real market value from day one. This meant governance votes, validator incentives, and dApp deployments all carried real consequences. Unlike testnets where developers can act carelessly, Songbird forced responsibility. But Songbird was more than a safety net. It became a proving ground for communities and developers who wanted to experiment without the pressure of Flare's higher stakes. Smaller projects saw it as a chance to test markets, build liquidity, and grow user bases before migrating, or sometimes staying permanently on Songbird. Critics argued that Songbird blurred the line between a testnet and a mainnet. Was it just a training ground or a blockchain with its own destiny? Supporters countered that this dual identity was its strength. By being both experimental and real, Songbird ensured that Flare's innovations would be robust, while still giving the Canary community its own voice and future. In the early months, Songbird's token, SGB, became actively traded. Exchanges listed it, traders speculated on its value, and a grassroots community formed around it. For many, it wasn't just Flare's testbed, it was a parallel chain with its own potential. The birth of Songbird symbolized a broader shift in blockchain philosophy, testing in live fire. Where traditional testnets offered low stakes and limited insight, Canary networks like Songbird embraced risk as the price of progress. The next chapter explores Songbird's technology and governance, how it tested Flare's F-assets, state connector, and voting mechanisms, and how it gave its community real power over the network's evolution. Part 2. Technology and Governance. Songbird's purpose was clear from day one, to test and refine the technologies that would power the Flare network. But unlike a disposable testnet, Songbird's innovations carried real weight, shaping the future of both ecosystems while giving its community real economic and governance power. At the heart of Songbird's role was the F-asset system. Flare's grand vision was to unlock smart contracts for non-programmable tokens like XRP, Litecoin, Dogecoin, and Stellar Lumens. F-assets were the mechanism to make that possible. By locking native tokens, users could mint equivalent F-assets on Flare or Songbird, enabling them to be used in DeFi, NFTs, or other smart contract applications. Songbird was the proving ground. Could these assets be minted reliably? Could collateral ratios be maintained? Could liquidation systems function under stress? Testing these mechanics on Songbird ensured that when they launched on Flare, they would be ready for real adoption. Equally important was the state connector, Flare's breakthrough system for bringing external data into the blockchain in a trustless way. Unlike traditional oracles which relied on third parties, the state connector allowed the network to validate real-world events and other blockchain states without centralized intermediaries. This was crucial for Flare's mission to connect everything, and Songbird was where it was tested under live conditions. But Songbird wasn't just about technology, it was also about governance. From the beginning, the network introduced community voting on critical parameters. Holders of SGB had the ability to influence upgrades, decide on protocol changes, and guide the network's evolution. This gave Songbird's community real responsibility. Their votes mattered, not just symbolically, but in shaping the very tools that would later define Flare. Songbird's governance structure mirrored Flare's long-term vision, a decentralized, community-driven network where token holders had the final say. By testing governance on Songbird first, Flare could refine voting systems, gauge participation, and ensure decisions weren't dominated by whales or centralized actors. This model gave rise to a new dynamic. Songbird wasn't just a canary for technology, it was a canary for governance. Would people actually participate in votes? Would they understand the implications of their decisions? Would governance be hijacked, or would it reflect collective wisdom? The answers learned on Songbird would directly shape Flare's rollout. Songbird also tested incentive structures. Validators secured the network, delegators earned rewards, and applications deployed tokens in liquidity pools. These incentives created feedback loops where developers and users could stress test economic models in real markets. Unlike a testnet faucet handing out fake coins, Songbird's SGB tokens had real value, forcing participants to act responsibly. For developers, this environment was invaluable. They could deploy apps on Songbird, gather real-world feedback, and even fail publicly, without the same reputational or financial risks of a mainnet launch. Some projects used Songbird as a launchpad, while others chose to stay, making it their permanent home. But governance and technology weren't without challenges. Participation in votes was uneven, with many SGB holders sitting out. Some argued the network was too experimental to carry lasting value, while others insisted governance gave Songbird legitimacy. And with Flare's progress slower than expected, critics questioned whether Songbird would ever fulfill its promise. Still, the combination of F-assets, state connector, governance votes, and real incentives made Songbird one of the most advanced Canary networks ever launched. It was more than a lab. It was a parallel ecosystem, shaping the infrastructure of the Internet of Value. The next chapter explores Songbird's adoption and ecosystem, how developers, DeFi protocols, and even gaming projects used it as a launchpad, and how its community gave it a life beyond just being Flare's testbed. Part 3. Adoption and ecosystem. Songbird may have been designed as a Canary network, but it quickly grew into a blockchain with its own identity, community, and ecosystem. What was meant to be a testing ground for Flare evolved into a proving ground for developers and a home for innovators who embraced its experimental spirit. The first wave of adoption came through DeFi. Developers eager to test protocols before deploying to Flare built decentralized exchanges, lending platforms, and liquidity pools directly on Songbird. With SGB carrying real value, these applications weren't just simulations. They operated in live markets. For projects, it was the best of both worlds, the ability to test under real economic conditions, but with the understanding that Songbird's experimental nature allowed room for trial and error. Community-driven initiatives like FeatherSwap and other Songbird native projects brought early liquidity to the network. Some developers treated Songbird as a sandbox, but others saw opportunity. They realized that by being first movers on Songbird, they could capture users, test tokenomics, and build brand loyalty before expanding into Flare. The gaming sector also found a home on Songbird. Blockchain games require fast, cheap, and flexible environments to test in-game economies, NFTs, and microtransactions. Songbird provided exactly that. Developers could experiment with tokenized assets, marketplaces, and play-to-earn mechanics in a live setting, without the same reputational risks of launching directly on a mainnet. For gamers and builders alike, Songbird was a frontier world where creativity could flourish. NFTs played a role too. The rise of NFTs across Ethereum and Solana inspired creators to launch collections on Songbird, where gas fees were low and experimentation was encouraged. Some artists embraced its identity as a testbed, marketing their collections as part of the Canary experiment. What might have been dismissed as niche instead became part of Songbird's culture, a blend of experimentation, art, and speculation. The Songbird community itself became a driving force of adoption. Holders of SGB rallied around the idea that their network was not just a testnet, but a living ecosystem. They organized governance votes, debated proposals, and promoted Songbird native projects. The grassroots movement gave Songbird an identity beyond Flare's shadow. It wasn't just Flare's little sibling. It was the Canary of the Internet of Value. This identity created tension and opportunity. Some saw Songbird as a stepping stone, a place to launch before graduating to Flare. Others embraced it as their permanent home, arguing that Songbird's independence, governance, and culture gave it unique value. Like Polkadot's Kusama, Songbird blurred the line between experiment and mainnet, making it both a launchpad and a destination. Exchanges reinforced this perception by listing SGB for trading. Once Songbird tokens had liquidity on major platforms, the narrative shifted. This wasn't just a testing token. It was a speculative asset, with investors betting that Songbird's role in governance and innovation would make it grow alongside Flare. Still, adoption was uneven. Some projects thrived, others fizzled. DeFi protocols saw bursts of activity followed by sharp drops. Gaming initiatives launched pilots but struggled for scale, and governance participation varied widely. Critics argued that Songbird was too experimental to sustain long-term adoption. Supporters countered that experimentation was the point, and that the projects which survived here would be battle-tested for the Internet of Value. In the end, adoption gave Songbird a soul. It was no longer just a safety net for Flare. It was a playground, a launchpad, and a culture all its own. The next chapter explores how Songbird compares to other Canary networks like Polkadot's Kusama, and why its role in Flare's mission makes it more than just a testnet. Part 4. Songbird versus other Canary testnets. Songbird isn't the first blockchain to embrace the Canary model. The idea gained prominence with Polkadot's Kusama, a network launched in 2019 as a proving ground for Polkadot's parachains and governance. Like Songbird, Kusama was built to test upgrades in real economic conditions with its own token, community, and culture. But while Kusama and Songbird share the Canary philosophy, their differences reveal what makes Songbird unique in the Internet of Value. Kusama was born out of necessity. Polkadot's architecture was complex, relying on parachains, relay chains, and shared security. To avoid catastrophic bugs, it needed a network where developers could deploy, experiment, and fail without bringing down Polkadot itself. Kusama became that playground, and it quickly developed a life of its own. Its community embraced the motto "Expect Chaos," leaning into its role as a wild, fast-moving environment. Some projects stayed permanently on Kusama, while others graduated to Polkadot. Songbird plays a similar role for Flare, but its context is different. Flare's mission is to unlock smart contracts and data for non-programmable chains like XRP, LTC, and Doge. That makes its experimental features, the F-asset system, the state connector, governance models, and economic incentives, critical to test under pressure. Songbird ensures those features are hardened before reaching Flare. The difference lies in identity. Kusama was framed as Polkadot's chaotic cousin, a permanent home for rebels and risk-takers. Songbird, by contrast, was framed from the start as the Canary of the Internet of Value. Its role was not only to test Flare's technology, but to ensure that the entire ecosystem connecting blockchains and real-world data could evolve safely. Where Kusama leaned into chaos, Songbird leaned into responsibility. Another key difference is integration. Kusama sits adjacent to Polkadot, sharing architecture but ultimately serving its own ecosystem. Songbird is directly tethered to Flare's roadmap. Every major innovation Flare introduces, from F-assets to governance upgrades, flows through Songbird first. Its destiny is tied more closely to its sibling than Kusama's is to Polkadot. Culturally, the two canaries diverge as well. Kusama developed an anarchic punk identity, with projects and developers embracing its unpredictability. Songbird, meanwhile, fostered a culture of builders and guardians. Its community embraced the idea of protecting Flare, testing responsibly, and shaping governance for the future Internet of Value. Yet like Kusama, Songbird still attracted speculation, NFT creators and DeFi pioneers eager to explore its frontier. The market also treated them differently. Kusama developed significant value, sometimes seen as a cheaper, wilder entry into the Polkadot ecosystem. Songbird followed a similar trajectory, with exchanges listing SGB and traders speculating on its role. But because Songbird's supply was tied to Flare's airdrop and governance, it carried a stronger perception of being more than just a side project. The comparison highlights a deeper truth. Canary networks blur the line between testnet and mainnet. They are both proving grounds and living economies. They carry risk but also reward. And in Songbird's case, its identity as Flare's twin makes it indispensable to the ecosystem's success. The next chapter explores the future of Songbird, its risks, opportunities, and its speculative role as the canary of the Internet of Value. Part 5. The Future of Songbird. The future of Songbird, SGB, is inseparable from the destiny of Flare, but it also carries its own unique possibilities. As the Canary network, its role is clear: to test, to experiment, to break before Flare does. Yet its journey since launch has proven that it is more than just a laboratory. It is a living ecosystem, with its own token, its own community, and its own narrative within the Internet of Value. The most obvious future path for Songbird is as Flare's proving ground. Every major innovation, whether it's enhancements to the F-asset system, upgrades to the state connector, or refinements to governance, will flow through Songbird first. In this role, it will remain indispensable. Without Songbird, Flare risks rolling out untested features to millions of users and billions in value. With Songbird, those risks are mitigated. But Songbird's future is not only as Flare's shield, it also has the potential to thrive as a parallel ecosystem. Developers who value its culture of experimentation may choose to stay permanently, building DeFi protocols, NFT projects, and games that live only on Songbird. Much like Kusama with Polkadot, Songbird could become a blockchain where the adventurous remain, a permanent home for innovation that doesn't fit Flare's more polished environment. The speculative question is whether Songbird's token, SGB, will grow in value alongside Flare. Supporters argue that SGB is undervalued, a hidden gem. Its supply is limited, its governance powers are real, and its position as the first stop for all Flare upgrades makes it critical to the ecosystem. If Flare succeeds, demand for Songbird's testing ground could translate into long-term value for SGB holders. Yet there are risks. If Flare struggles to gain adoption, Songbird's importance could diminish. Without a vibrant Flare ecosystem to support, Songbird risks being dismissed as just another experiment. Even if Flare succeeds, Songbird's role could be overshadowed, leaving its community fighting for recognition. Governance is another uncertainty. While Songbird has tested decentralized decision-making, participation has been uneven. Its future as a truly community-driven network depends on whether SGB holders engage deeply, or whether apathy allows whales and centralized actors to dominate decisions. Still, Songbird's resilience should not be underestimated. It has already proven that it can attract builders, traders, and communities who see it as more than just a testnet. Its identity as the canary of the Internet of Value resonates. It carries symbolic weight, a reminder that in innovation, failure is not the end. It is the path to strength. Speculatively, Songbird's future may follow one of two arcs. In one, it remains forever tethered to Flare, its value rising and falling in tandem, its identity inseparable from its sibling. In the other, it becomes a chain in its own right, a home for experimentation, culture, and communities who embrace its wild, pioneering spirit. For now, Songbird endures. It tests, it experiments, it breaks, and it learns. It may not always be in the spotlight, but it is always in the story. Songbird's future, like the canaries in coal mines long ago, is to go first, to take risks so that others may thrive. The canary still sings. The canary of the Internet of Value, Songbird, was never meant to be the star. It was meant to test, to take risks, to fail so that others could succeed. Yet along the way, it became something more. A community, an economy, and a symbol of resilience. The Canary network proved that in blockchain, even the experiments can take on lives of their own. Songbird may forever live in Flare's shadow, but without it, the Internet of Value would be fragile. With it, every innovation is stronger, every risk is safer, and every leap forward is possible. Here at LTL Productions, we tell the untold stories of crypto, the chains, the cultures, and the hidden engines shaping the future of money. Subscribe to LTL Productions. Share this video with someone who thinks testnets don't matter, and join us as we continue exploring the projects building tomorrow's Internet of Value. This is LTL Productions, and this is Songbird, the canary of the Internet of Value.